Hello again, friends. I'm Covenant Ironface, and my partner, Drekmo Cress. We represent Team No. Today, like we promised, we went to go see Pan! Yay!
Yay!
So much enthusiasm. With Hugh Jackman as Blackbeard.
Rawr. Let's just get right into it here.
Yeah.
As usual, we're gonna go ahead and try and break down and explain as much as we can without limiting the spoilers. To start off with our plot and story here, essentially, it's supposed to be an origin story for Peter Pan, and it feels kind of left out on a lot of stuff, but I'll get to that in a moment. What the real main story here is, Blackbeard is trying to conquer Neverland. He's at war with the Indians, the natives, tribals, whatever you want to call them. I don't think they said Indians in the movie, but that's...
Yeah, no, they just said tribesmen, tribals, natives, and the fairy folk.
Yeah. And he is trying to collect fairy dust, which it explains a little bit, but that's essentially the entirety of it. In order to do this, he's literally kidnapping children and using them as slaves. That's kind of dark.
Blackbeard.
Blackbeard, yeah. And that brings Pan into the world. Apparently Pan is an orphan in a London boys' shelter or whatever, and he's one of the children that gets kidnapped and goes along there to Neverland. And like I said, this is supposed to be an origin story of Peter Pan. And from where they start the movie at, they literally talk about friends being enemies and enemies being friends. It's supposed to explain more also about Captain Hook. And I have to say this, sorry, but it fails to do either.
Yeah, it explicitly says at the beginning of the movie, friends may start out as enemies and enemies may start out as friends. And that's it. You would expect them to explain why, Peter Pan and Hook hate each other later on in the movie, but they never go back to it. Either they, drop some part of the movie out for some reason or another, or they're expecting a sequel. And we'll get to our conclusion on that in a minute.
But along with this, and this I have to say, this was done poorly. The story literally loops back to another reiteration of, he's the chosen one.
I thought of Jupiter Ascending several times.
Jupiter Ascending, the Matrix, whatever. They're just like, he's the chosen one. He's the Pan. That
was a horrible idea. Oh yes, the Pan. The Pan is our greatest warrior. So the little boy is their greatest warrior now. So he must be the Pan. Oh God, don't ever do that again.
It's that part right there, that part of the plot, that was a horrible idea. I understand that he's supposed to be someone important in this world, but doing the whole, I'm the chosen one thing has been so overdone in movies throughout the years that you either really need to add something special to it in the mix, which they didn't, or you just need to avoid it, which they didn't.
Yeah. And they didn't even focus much on the prophecy, and it's just, okay,
oh, yeah.
It's the MacGuffin of, here, you are here because we need you to be the chosen one.
Yeah, what was it?
Congrats.
What was it? It's the prophecy, but the charts say. The prophecy is the guiding force, but it was given in very little detail. And we've kind of ranted on about our story here a little bit, but let's go ahead and take a look at our characters.
I don't know the name of the kid, and I typically try not to judge harshly on children actors, but the kid is old enough to know he's in a movie and he's supposed to be playing a role. And when you're getting somebody old enough to know that, you need to get somebody who can do something. Daniel Radcliffe in Harry Potter. He was clearly old enough to know what he was doing, and he came off very well. This kid is, mostly from, mystified, fantasy world, to mystified fantasy world. He really doesn't get emotional even when there's tears falling down his face, it doesn't look.
He feels very bland.
And
there was only one scene that I really felt the emotion from his face, where he was looking out across the stars, and you could see a sense of amazement. He needed more of that in the movie. This is a magical land, and yet he just feel like, magic.
Yeah, cool. And the way they did Hook, almost like an Indiana Jones character. It's like, who the fuck is this? Why is he called Hook? Yeah, we know who he's supposed to be, but this is nowhere near his character. And he doesn't really develop anything besides the hots for Tiger Lily, who's, insanely older than she's supposed to be. Sorry, I don't mean to be ranting about what should be and what shouldn't be because of other movies.
But, yeah.
But just judging from this movie, I see no reason for that romance to be there. It really doesn't. And Tiger Lily has a little bit more character than the other two. She actually makes sense for her to be fighting, this war against Blackbeard. But there's really nothing else. That's it. She's there to explain, hey, sorry, your mother's dead, you need to go do this. Whoops, I probably shouldn't have said that. Whatever. Too late.
Spoilers.
What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Tiger Lily. She really doesn't have a lot of purpose. She has more purpose than Peter Pan or Hook, but she has a purpose. So I believe that of her. The only character in this movie that I really actually like is Blackbeard. Hugh Jackman as Blackbeard is just hilarious. In the beginning of the movie, he comes out and he's got these entire legions of slave children singing.
We'll get to that.
And it was hilarious. The second time they did it, it was okay, but that was all immediately in the beginning of the movie. And I think they really should have done that more. At least another time or two.
And the rest of the supporting cast is mostly random pirates or random tribals. It's really important to say that Smee is also in this movie. And he actually, although I felt most of the characters didn't really develop very well over the time of this movie, Smee actually felt like Smee should. He's kind of a cowardly little man. He tries to be helpful, but literally, when the shit hits the fan, Smee goes, nope, I'm hiding. This is how Smee has been in all the Peter Pan iterations. This guy, that was good. Another unimportant, I should say slightly important character, is the tribal leader and the tribal warrior. They're what they call their Pan, their warrior. The leader does give them a little bit of backstory, and like I said, he's only really a sub-character, but he explains a lot, and through how he acts and treats his tribe and treats Pan, he gives you a feeling of the entire tribe, and what they're fighting for. And the warrior, although he has very few lines in the movie, he's just an awesome fighter. They basically have a fight scene on trampolines, and that was awesome. And this is just a guess. I do have to throw this out there because I was thinking it during the movie. He has a triple red striped. He's bald, but he has a triple red striped paint on his head. I can only guess that he's somehow related to Rufio later on.
Rufio!
And the last thing we really want to check out is our cinematography and environment.
This is probably where they did the best in this movie.
/ worst.
/ worst. There were a couple of scenes that were just horrible. But for the overall part of this movie, it's part dark fantasy, part childish humor, part adventure, awe-inspiring wonder. And I think they probably got that down the best. Like he said, there was a scene where Peter actually had amazement on his face. He's seeing this world for the first time, and it looks beautiful. Then there's the birds. Now, they aren't really important, so we're hopefully not spoiling too much. But they have these things called never birds. Well, they're on Neverland, so they must be never birds. They look horrible.
They look sort of like undead birds of some sort, but it feels like they don't fit in the environment. Like the last part of rendering wasn't done for this CGI. They're obviously cartoonish, and you don't see how they can interact with the world correctly. There's a couple of other CGI shots where it's the same thing, where it's like everything looks amazing, and then suddenly there's this shot here that looks horrible.
And then, no, I really don't want to discuss the ending of it. Just to say, the ending scene, the ending environment where they end up, looks amazing. And for these ships to be flying through the air and doing all the stuff that they do in the end, it looks fantastic. Besides a couple of parts where we got annoyed. But this is where they came together the best. And that's mostly what I have to say about it, because their connection of how they put this together and how this character interacts with this world, that's what Peter Pan is about. That's what it's supposed to be about. And if they had just focused more on that, I think this would have been a lot better.
Yeah, there is... I do want to say a little bit, our environment, and back to the story as well, I want to tie this in. They did some really good CGI stuff for flashbacks, but it was really pointless because they had multiple flashbacks covering the same thing. It looked like they were doing CGI for the purpose of CGI, not for the purpose of bettering your story. And anytime
that's why I thought of Jupiter Ascending so much.
Yeah, anytime you're doing that, you're basically just saying, look at this fanciness, instead of actually adding to your movie. There's a certain limit to where you need to add. And on top of the environment, like I said, we were going to get back to the singing thing. For the most part, their song selection, like their instrumentals, while they're running through the woods, pirate fights, stuff, was actually really good.
And then there was the singing.
Blackbeard comes out, like you said, and there's hundreds of children singing. This is a very powerful image, and I do like it. But the song they selected for everyone to be singing is Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana. That was a bad choice.
It just made no sense. Seriously.
It didn't feel right. There's a couple of other selections that you could have easily done. Now, it's not completely bad, because it lets you look into Blackbeard's character a little bit, because he's both like powerful, dark, but at the same time, if you had selected a better song, you would have delivered a better message. Instead of just entertain us. Here we are now. Entertain us. Alright.
Next week is a veritable smorgasbord of movies coming out. There's Bridge of Spies, Crimson Peak, and Goosebumps all coming out next week. And we just can't see them all. But we really want to.
But before we get to that, I think we kind of skipped over something here.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Over conclusion.
An overall conclusion, I hate to say it, I can only partially recommend this movie as well because of the problems. It's not a bad something to go see with friends, but I don't think it's worth spending the extra money to go see it in 3D or go see it in a balcony or director's suite or anything like that. Maybe catch it as a normal matinee, or if it hits the dollar theaters at some point. It would be a fun afternoon, but for a cheaper price.
Honestly, I don't know where I stand with this. There are some parts of this movie that I just fucking hate. And then there's parts of this movie that I really did enjoy. I don't know what to say. I don't even want to agree with you on the matinee. Wait until Netflix or something. Because, it is entertaining. It is a good afternoon, like you just said. But I don't think it's worth seeing in the theaters.
Yeah. But yeah, so back to what he was saying about all the movies we've got. Our current plan is to hit 2 of those 3 movies he listed. We intend to do Bridge of Spies on Thursday,
Yep.
and then come back and hit Goosebumps on Friday. Unfortunately, that means that we may not get to see Crimson Peak. We're still going to try and fit that in somewhere if we have the time. But if not, something's got to be cut. We can't be at every movie every time. But of course, got anything?
Unfortunately, it has to be this good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as our usual wrap up, if you like to listen to our rants about the movies, go ahead and click like. If you want to hear more, go ahead and click the subscribe. And as always, we'll see you next time.